Hello, lovely listeners. I'm Julia, who will help you relax and fall asleep tonight. What time is it for you right now? And did anything make you laugh or smile today? Share it below in the comments. In the quiet, pale light of early spring, in a modest barnyard nestled among rolling green hills, a loving mother duck had cared for her soft, speckled eggs through long, uncertain nights. As the tender rays of dawn crept over the horizon, each egg began to tremble with life, and one by one, the fragile shells cracked open, revealing tiny, downy ducklings to the world. Among these newborn beings was one little creature who seemed markedly different from his siblings. While his brothers and sisters displayed a vibrant, golden hue and delicate features, this particular duckling possessed a muted, almost dull shade of gray, and a set of eyes that held a curious mixture of timidity and sadness. All that day, as his lively siblings flapped about with impish energy, the little duckling lingered silent at the edge of the gathering, his appearance strikingly odd and unnoticed by those who cared more about mirth than uniqueness. In the warm bustle of the barnyard, the other animals, the clucking chickens, the contented cows, and even the mischievous barn cats, took note of every new arrival with brief, passing glances. However, when they saw the gray duckling, their eyes filled with a mix of disdain and pity. Whispers spread quickly among the farmyard inhabitants, and rumors of his supposed ugliness became a constant refrain. The hens clucked disapprovingly as they pecked at the feed, remarking in low tones about the unfortunate duckling's dull appearance, while the pigs oinked with laughter at his expense. Even the usually indifferent horses would shake their heads in a slow, sorrowful gesture whenever the little duckling waddled by, as if silently condemning his very existence. The more he grew, the more his differences became a target for their cruelty, until the bright future that might have awaited him was obscured by the dark clouds of ridicule. Every day, as the barnyard bustled with work and play, the little duckling was subjected to hurtful jibes. "Look at that odd fellow," a rooster would crow, strutting pompously near the henhouse. "He is too plain for our refined tastes," sometimes echoing across the yard. The insults were not merely words. They were accompanied by little acts of mischief and malice: a push from a clumsy goat, a harsh peck from a sharp-beaked crow, or cold, deliberate avoidance by his playful siblings who preferred to splash around without him. Despite all the laughter and jeering, the little duckling's heart remained quietly resilient, even though he struggled each hour with a growing sense of isolation. His mother, however, noticed the unjust treatment his fragile spirit endured. With tender care, she would approach him, shielding him from the worst of the reprimanding glares and murmured criticisms. "You are precious, my dear, just as you are," she would murmur soothingly, her wings embracing him gently and offering a warmth that no cruel word could dispel. Yet even her maternal reassurance could not erase the searing hurt inflicted by the relentless tease of his peers. In the soft murmur of the fanfare of nature, the little duckling felt that perhaps he was somehow marred by fate, an anomaly in the otherwise harmonious mosaic of the barnyard. The subtle isolation he experienced laid the destiny of a journey a quest for acceptance that would eventually stretch far beyond the protective bounds of his humble origins. Thus began the early chapters of his life, marked by both the promise of a loving home and the bitter sting of ostracism from a world too preoccupied to look deeply into a tender soul. Every quiver of the wind, every ripple upon the pond, whispered secrets of hidden possibilities and uncharted territories. He often gazed beyond the familiar confines of the barnyard, where the earth met the sky, seeking solace in the promise of distant lands and new hopes. The barnyard, with all its charms and disappointments, offered only a limited perspective on the vast and intricate tapestry of the natural world. In those moments of solitude, as twilight painted the heavens with hues of purple and gold, the little duckling dreamt of a place where he might someday belong without fear of ridicule, a place where beauty was not measured by similarity, but by the quiet strength of one's spirit. And so, bathed in the soft glow of hope and the lingering echoes of his mother's gentle reassurances, the peculiar little duckling resolved that his life was meant for something greater than endless scorn. Even as he struggled with the burden of his own perceived imperfections, the calling of the wild beyond the barnyard began to stir within him, a flicker of a fire waiting to ignite into a journey of discovery and perhaps acceptance. In that quiet barnyard, hope stirred steadily, promising a future filled with wonder indeed. After spending his earliest days amid the cacophony of barnyard jeers and bitter loneliness, the little duckling began to understand that his world was far too small to contain the deep longing burning within him. With every passing sunrise, an inner voice urged him to explore beyond the familiar fences and crumbling haystacks. One crisp morning, when the dew still clung to the blades of grass and the air tasted of promise, the duckling made the brave decision to leave the only home he had ever known. He ventured past the rickety wooden gate, stepping timidly onto an unknown path that wound its way towards sprawling meadows and shimmering streams, carrying with him the quiet hope of discovering a place where he could finally feel whole. The journey was fraught with uncertainty, and the little duckling found himself encountering wild creatures far different from the gentle beings of the barnyard. Journey was fraught with uncertainty, and he found himself encountering wild creatures far different from the gentle beings of the barnyard. Soon he joined a small group of wild ducks that paddled gracefully across a serene pond, their feathers glistening under the midday sun. The wild ducks welcomed him with cautious curiosity, for his appearance was unlike any they had seen among their own. In the gentle ripples of the water, they exchanged silent nods of acknowledgement, though differences in size and plumage set him apart. He attempted to learn their graceful ways of swimming and dipping below the water's surface, practicing with earnest determination. Yet, a hidden sadness often shadowed his attempts, as if the echo of the barnyard's harsh words haunted him with every paddle. Not long after, a band of wild geese, with flights as majestic as the drifting clouds, joined them for moments of soaring conversation and migration in search of abundant pastures. The geese, with their honking calls and imposing presence, treated the lone wanderer with a mixture of pity and reluctant acceptance. They sometimes teased him gently, remarking on his roly-poly gait or the slightly off-kilter way he dived for treats. "You'd better keep up or miss the magic of a clear flight," they would jest in honks that blended humor with scorn. Despite their teasing, the duckling felt an underlying warmth in the presence of these wild kin, even if acceptance came in fragments, like patches of sunlight on a cool, damp morning. For a time, the company of wild ducks and geese offered the duckling a brief respite from his painful memories, replacing the cruelty of the barnyard with the bittersweet camaraderie of newcomers. They drifted on open waters, glided along gentle rivers, and roamed the sidelong banks of vibrant lakes, all the while sharing stories of their travels and the places they longed to return to. Each shared narrative painted a picture of lands where beauty knew no limits, where one's differences were celebrated as marks of uniqueness rather than imperfections. As days turned into weeks, the duckling sometimes forgot the painful echoes of the past, lulled by the soothing rhythm of the water and the gentle lullabies of the wind. However, the fragile peace of their newfound life was shattered one fateful afternoon when the grim shadow of human intrusion fell upon their tranquil gathering. Out of nowhere, harsh voices resounded and rugged hands disturbed the water, scattering the flock with panic-stricken cries. Hunters, armed with menacing contraptions and driven by the cold call of profit and sport, attacked the unsuspecting wild birds. In the chaos that ensued, several of the duck's newfound companions were caught in the frenzy, their lives cut short in brutal, indiscriminate violence. The vibrant colors of feathers and joyful honks were abruptly replaced by the echoing silence of death, leaving the little wanderer gripped in utter terror. Alone yet determined, he resolved to seek a safer haven indeed. After the harrowing experiences among wild birds and the sorrow of a shattered gathering, the little wanderer's journey continued with a mix of hope and resignation. Not long after that dreadful day, as the soft hues of a new dawn broke over a sleepy countryside, the duckling encountered a kindly old woman who lived in a quaint cottage on the edge of a bustling village. Her home, adorned with blooming window boxes and the inviting aroma of freshly baked bread, seemed a sanctuary compared to the wild uncertainties he had faced. The old woman had a tender heart and a gentle smile that spoke of years filled with kindness and warm companionship. Seeing the forlorn duckling shivering near her garden, she knelt to offer him shelter and a small bowl of water, whispering, "Come, little one, rest here with me." For a time, the cottage became a haven for the duckling. He settled into a quiet corner of the garden, where the old woman's care filled the space with a sense of gentle belonging. The old woman, who had never had a pet of her own, grew fond of the curious creature. She would spend long afternoons by the fire, speaking softly to him, as if reciting secrets of a bygone era. Yet, not all who shared her home embraced the new arrival. Among her companions was a sleek, cunning cat, whose eyes glimmered with mischief and disdain. The cat, used to commanding the household, felt threatened by the intrusion of this unusual guest. With silent, graceful steps, the cat would circle the duckling, pawing at his feet and hissing in tones that reverberated through the quiet cottage halls. In addition to the cat, a sharp-tongued hen roamed the yard with a haughty air. The hen, proud of her impeccable feathers and reputation as the guardian of the garden, took it upon herself to ensure that the new duckling did not overstay his welcome. "You shouldn't be here," the hen clucked harshly one morning as the duckling peered out from behind a cluster of marigolds. "This is my domain, and you are not fit to tread upon our ground," she declared, her tone laced with scorn. Such taunts became a daily ritual. The cat's sly glances and the hen's relentless quips filled the duckling's days with bitter anxiety, slowly eroding the fragile comfort the old woman had so lovingly provided. Despite the gentle solace of the old woman's care, the constant mockery from the cat and the hen weighed heavily upon the duckling. Their jeering words and sneaky antics soon drove home the painful reality that even in a refuge, acceptance was not guaranteed. Each hiss from the cat, each sharp retort from the hen, carved deeper into his tender spirit. In moments of silent reflection by the window, as autumn leaves danced in the chilly wind outside, the duckling realized that perhaps living among those who mocked him was a fate worse than the hardship he had known before. With a heavy heart, he made the momentous decision to leave the cottage behind, stepping once again onto an uncertain road in search of a place where true kindness awaited. Though the journey away from the old woman's haven was filled with sorrow, the duckling's resolve was firm. He bid her farewell with a gentle quack, and without glancing back at the cottage that had offered him temporary solace, he set off into the open fields under a sky tinged with melancholy. The echoes of scorn and rejection, now as familiar as the rustling of leaves in the wind, accompanied his solitary departure, a painful reminder that acceptance was as elusive as the shifting shadows at dusk. He wandered on, resolute. When autumn faded into the stark embrace of winter, the landscape transformed into a realm of frost and silence. The once vibrant fields turned into a tapestry of white and blue, and the chill seeped into every living creature's bones. The duckling, now a solitary wanderer with a history of rejection and sorrow, faced the new season with a mixture of trepidation and numb resolve. One bitter morning, as the ice began to claim the edges of the familiar pond, a grizzled farmer emerged from his farmhouse. Wrapped in a heavy coat and a weathered hat, the farmer noticed the small, shivering form of the duckling huddled near the frozen lake. Moved by a rare impulse of compassion, he gently scooped up the trembling bird, cradling him against the cold as he carried him into the warmth of his weathered barn. Inside the barn, the duckling found brief shelter from the biting winds. Yet the transient sanctuary was soon disrupted by the boisterous laughter and clamor of the farmer's children, who ran wildly among the piles of hay. Their excited shouts echoed off the wooden walls, rattling the fragile peace the duckling had begun to cherish. In the midst of playful chaos, the duckling felt overwhelmed by another surge of panic and fled from the crowded barn, leaving behind the feigned comfort of human kindness. Once outside in the winter's frigid air, he found himself alone again, shivering under a sky that offered no promises of warmth. Disoriented and desperate for shelter, the duckling sought refuge in a dark, secluded cave by the lake. The cave, partially concealed by overhanging briars and frost, became his reluctant home. There, in the silent solitude, he huddled day after day, listening to the haunting whispers of the wind and the crackling of ice as it formed on the surface of the frozen lake. The winter stretched endlessly before him, a season of perpetual isolation and numbing cold. As he waited for spring, the duckling's world was reduced to the confines of that small, shadowy cavern and the bleak, icy expanse beyond. In the quiet hours, when the cold seemed to seep into every fiber of his being, he remembered the warmth of the barnyard, the fleeting kindness of strangers, and the hope that once fluttered in his heart like a fragile flame. Yet, the frozen silence of winter offered no solace or comfort. It was as though the season itself conspired to amplify the weight of his solitude. Each day, the icy winds carried with them memories of whispered taunts and harsh jests, a lingering echo of the rejections of his past. The duckling, now more isolated than ever, often found himself wondering if the bitter cold was a punishment for being different. Night after night, the cavern would cradle him in its chilly darkness, and the flicker of his own heartbeat was his only companion against the pervasive cold. In these long, desolate days, the duckling's spirit was both hardened and diminished by the relentless winter. The memory of the farmer's barn and the now distant laughter of children seemed like distant dreams, fading with each passing frost-laden moment. Yet, even as the cold pressed in around him, a quiet determination began to take hold in his aching heart. Through the frozen quiet, he held on to the faint hope that someday the harsh bite of winter would give way to the gentle promise of spring and a chance to begin anew. He vowed in the silent, frozen night that someday he would find a place of warmth and belonging, truly eternal. As the relentless cycle of seasons turned once more, the duckling found himself transformed by time and the harsh lessons of survival. No longer was he the fragile, uncertain creature who had first trembled beneath the weight of rejection. In the solitude of winter and the trials of each passing day, his body had grown stronger, his plumage fuller, and though his heart still bore scars of a lifetime of loneliness, a new strength had taken root within him. He had learned that the world was as unforgiving as it was beautiful. Yet beneath that cruel exterior lay hidden truths about resilience, identity, and the promise of redemption. In the quiet solitude of his exile, the duckling, now a mature bird with graceful bearing, began to reflect on his existence. For too long, he had wandered feeling undeserving of warmth, haunted by a belief that he was flawed. Every dismissive word and glance echoed in his memory. In a moment of despair, he resolved he could no longer endure endless solitude and hardship. Years of suffering and isolation led him to a desperate choice. One cold day, as the weak winter sun cast a pale glow over the frozen land, he marched to the familiar lake with a heavy heart and a clouded mind. In that solemn moment, With rejection burning inside him, he decided to cast himself into the embrace of beauty, seeking a final end among those he had admired from afar. With a deep breath, he stood at the water's edge, where memories of his painful past gathered. He imagined a reunion with the elegant swans whose beauty had long haunted his dreams. If my life must end in misery, he thought, then I wish to be claimed by beauty rather than suffer in ugliness. His eyes held a final, sorrowful plea for release. He took a deep breath and stepped into the icy water. Each step sent gentle ripples echoing his broken heart. The lake's chill enveloped him, matching the intense turmoil he felt. With each quivering movement, he seemed to dance on the brink between life and oblivion. In that moment, a magnificent flock of swans appeared on the far side of the lake. Their graceful flight and serene presence painted perfection before him. The sight filled him with a bittersweet hope that warred with despair. As he waded deeper, his vision blurred by the cold and sorrow, he closed his eyes and let the currents carry him forward. He braced himself and surged toward the flock. With a determined leap, he launched himself into the lake, accepting fate with both fear and resolve. Every fiber of his being trembled as he collided with the water, a final act driven by despair. Unexpectedly, instead of harm, the swans welcomed him with gentle warmth. Their kind eyes and soft gestures dispelled the despair that had long burdened his heart. In that instant, the weight of his grief lifted slightly as he sensed acceptance rather than condemnation. Stunned and overwhelmed, he felt a cascade of emotions wash over him. In the cold water, every heartbeat echoed like the distant toll of a bell marking the end of sorrow. For a long moment, time seemed suspended as he floated there, his muscles trembling and his mind awash with disbelief. The gentle murmur of the swans, so unlike the harsh retorts of his past, resonated within him as a promise of acceptance he had never known. His thoughts raced wildly. Could this be the final mercy he had longed for, a bittersweet reprieve from a lifetime of rejection? The contrast between the icy chill of the lake and the warm, inviting gaze of his unexpected rescuers stirred in him a profound realization. In that surreal instance, he began to question all he had believed about his own worth. All the years spent feeling misshapen and unloved suddenly seemed to be an illusion, a distortion manufactured by his own despair. Here, amidst the elegant swans, he sensed that perhaps beauty was not confined to the superficial, but radiated from a hidden inner truth. His heart, once heavy with the burden of ridicule and isolation, now fluttered with a fragile hope. In the shimmering reflection of the water, however faint, he started to glimpse something unfamiliar, an image that hinted at a different destiny from the one he had so tragically imagined. Confusion and wonder intermingled within his chest as the currents carried him slowly toward an uncertain future. In that reflective instant, the mature bird began to understand that all his years of sorrow were but a prelude to something greater. Overwhelmed by this revelation, his heart pounded with a mixture of joy and disbelief. Each ripple in the water seemed to whisper that he was more than the sum of his past pain. Slowly, recognition dawned upon him. The creature he had scorned his entire life was not a misbegotten duckling, but a magnificent swan, destined for grace and freedom. His eyes filled with tears as he absorbed this truth, and for the first time, he allowed himself to feel hope. The weight of years of isolation began to lift, replaced by the quiet promise of a new beginning. Rising from the water with newfound confidence, he joined the swan family in their graceful flight. As the flock took to the air, each powerful beat of his wings echoed the rhythm of liberation. In the vast expanse of the sky, his doubts and past sorrows melted away, replaced by a soaring joy he had never known. Surrounded by his elegant kin, he felt an indescribable connection to the world, as if at last, all the fragmented pieces of his life had finally come together. In that celestial dance of flight, he embraced his true identity and the boundless freedom that awaited him. High above, as they soared under the endless sky, he felt every gust of wind whisper promises of a future unmarred by past sorrows. The transformation was not merely physical, but a rebirth of spirit. In the company of these majestic swans, every doubt was replaced by an unwavering belief in his own worth. The blue horizon stretched infinitely, mirroring the vast potential of his life ahead. With each graceful wing beat, he charted a new course, leaving behind the silent echoes of his painful past. In that sublime moment, the sky and water merged into one, symbolizing a unity of nature and self, a reminder that every soul carries its own hidden light waiting to shine. In that final moment, as he soared among his newfound family, he felt an undeniable joy. A joyful future beckoned him, and he accepted it wholeheartedly. Thus, he embraced the endless sky as his home with unwavering, boundless hope forever. Sweet dreams, good night.